Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 472 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Keith Johnson. And if you want to hear the story about how to be financially, physically, and mentally fit, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. We have episode 472 today with Dr. Keith Johnson. He is not a chiropractor, but we're going to talk a whole lot about what he is and what he does and how he helps his community and how that might transcend to helping our community. His new book is Financial Fast Track, and I think there's going to be some information he's going to share within that. We got the 3 pillars of success, the 4 levels of wealth, and there's a lot of information that we're going to be talking about today to help chiropractors with his knowledge. But before we jump into this episode, I just want to let everyone know why we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle. Well, number one, we do protect freedom of speech. I think that's so important this day and age to have a platform like ours that protects freedom of speech and doesn't censor people. We also protect family freedom and medical freedom. Having such a vast array of practitioners coming onto our show, I believe that truth will always prevail. And then we also protect BJ Palmer's Sacred Trust. If you don't know what BJ Palmer's Sacred Trust is, go to your favorite search engine right now and put in BJ Palmer's last words. If you don't know who BJ Palmer was, he was the developer of chiropractic. He is the son of Dee Palmer, the founder of chiropractic. So the family is really important to the world. And here, Dr. Keith, something a lot of people might not know that watch you or that don't know me. I'm from Davenport, Iowa, the birthplace of chiropractic. So wow. That's a pretty cool opener. And then we believe in subluxation-based chiropractic. Once again, if you don't know what that means, go to your favorite search engine and find out what subluxation chiropractic means. And then we believe in innate intelligence, the power inside of us, and universal intelligence. That when man or woman, the physical, get adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. So I know that's a lot of information there. That's our pre-opener. But Dr. Keith Johnson, welcome to our show.
Hey, welcome, Jim. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about being on here today.
Yeah, you know, what I said to you before the show started is like, dude, we run the #1 podcast in the world for chiropractors. It's really hard to be a category killer. So it's really cool to have you on and feature you onto our show today.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's really cool. Congratulations. I remember once I was at Fox Business News and I was getting ready. They were getting me ready to do an interview, and they had one of the young guys kind of, prepping me, and he started reading my bio and he says, America's #1 confidence coach. And he looked up at me and says, are you #1? And I'm like, what do you want? #2? I can go get him if you want somebody else. So I love that, man. Congratulations on dominating your field and making a difference like you are, and encouraging and inspiring all these chiropractors. Kudos to you. And it's good to connect here for the first time.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of information you're going to help people with today. I know that the book is a cornerstone to our conversation today. Let's talk a little bit about the book and how you believe that can help chiropractors.
Well, the book is entitled Financial Fast Track: How to Experience Abundance, Accelerate Results, and Eliminate Bad Debt. And one of the big things that I think that we're all challenged with today is that all of us need to scale our finances. I mean, I think all across the boards, we're kind of being awakened by this inflation. We're kind of realizing that the future is going to be really expensive. And we see something happening in culture where, a very interesting thing is happening. There's more people getting richer than ever in the history of the world and faster than ever in the history of the world. And the poor are getting poorer faster than ever. And there's a line being drawn. It's like, which way are you going? Because the middle class is completely disappearing. And so my goal is to help as many people as possible to get out of that middle place so they don't move into poverty. And by the way, I define middle class as anybody who's making under $400,000 a year. It's impossible to build serious wealth unless you're at the starting line of about $400,000 a year. So that's what Financial Fast Track is all about. It's all about getting the fast strategies. Money has a need for speed, just like Tom Cruise has a need to fly fast airplanes and ride fast motorcycles. It has a need for speed. And so its number one enemy is resistance. And so we have to make sure in our day, in this time that we're living in, we have to make sure that we don't have any resistance to money, that we're not pushing money away, that we're actually operating and flowing in the season and the time that we're living in, and making sure we do the necessary pivots and changes so that we're part of the thrivers instead of just the survivors and the get buyers.
So you said something there that really sparked interest to me. The baseline is $400,000. Is that like an annual salary or annual income, or is that savings?
Annual salary.
And
annual income. I mean, if you're a chiropractor, you're not making $400,000. You're doing, I say it really straight. I'm a straight shooter. You're doing a big disservice to your family. And your future is looking bleak, because it's literally impossible. It's why the government says, hey, if you're making over $400,000, we're not going to tax you. or excuse me, if you're making less than $400,000, we're not going to tax you. Why? The economists know, and the government knows, that it takes right at $400,000 to be able to build wealth. And so to build wealth, you're going to need 40% of what you make is what you're going to need to be able to move into being an investor. So to live on 60% and to be able to invest your other 40, you're going to need at least $400,000 once you back taxes out and you do the numbers. It's spot on, my brother.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because for me, I talk to a lot of chiropractors about philosophy and practice type and marketing and things of that nature. But when I talk to a guy that's in the financial world, that's really impressive to me, because I learn as I go. And I believe that there's a lot of people that listen to our show that are going to find this information really valuable. So say that we have somebody that's, the main treating chiropractor at a chiropractic clinic, and they're not making $400,000 annually. What strategies and advice would you give to them to get to that mark?
Well, I think first of all, it's why I made the statement. It's like a lot of people in America today, they need an awakening, right? Mm-hmm. It's like change doesn't happen until you're first awakened to the thought of, wait a minute, I'm not making enough money. And the problem with a lot of people is we get in associations with people who are making about the same money. And probably a lot of your audience, they're making six figures. And that at one time was a big goal. It was a big target. Ooh, I make six figures. And now 6 figures is really what I would consider lower middle class, because a 6-figure person is struggling right now. So I believe what needs to take place is we've got to set bigger targets. And so at the beginning is awareness. Wow, you know what? I can't just stay satisfied here at making $400,000 a year. And see, that's when creativity begins to unlock in the chiropractor, when he starts to think, okay, wow, I'm making 200, I'm making 300. Wow, I need to push for 400. But really, our bigger target is $1 million a year. You're not really successful unless you're making $1 million a year if you own your own business. So that's the new goals, and setting the new goals is really what I discovered. My coach challenged me, right? And I remember our goal here, was $83,000 a month. That was my goal. $83,000 a month times 12. That's $1 million. And my coach started challenging me about 5 years ago, and he said, "Listen, why are you just setting a target for $83,000 a month? How long have you been doing that?" I said, "Well, I've been hitting this for 5 years now." He says, "Well, how about fast tracking it? What if you started asking yourself, the question is, how can I make more money faster?" He said, "Keith, your problem's not that you don't make money. Your problem is you're not making money fast enough." And he says, what if we could take your goal of making $83,000 a month, and what if we could take that and say, what if we thought about the possibility of you making $83,000 in a week? And of course, when he said that, I was like, a week? And as soon as our belief systems are challenged, right, our wrong belief systems come to the surface. That's why questions are so powerful from a coach, right? And I'm like, well, I started coming up with all the reasons why it wasn't possible for me to make $83,000 a week. And he says, "Well, Keith," he says, "right now you're running up against a limited belief system. And until you destroy that belief system," he said, "maybe it's not possible in a week, but what if it was possible in 2 weeks?" And he said, "But if you don't believe it can happen in a week, you're not going to believe it can happen in 2 weeks." He said, "You need to go back and examine yourself and listen to your own self-talk and find out what limited beliefs do you have that's putting the brakes in your own mind." And when I started to do that, I said, wow, these are wrong belief systems. And I got rid of my own brakes, and it was crazy. The very next week, I said, I'm going to make $83,000 this week. I shifted gears, shifted my mindset. I asked myself the question, how can I do this? See, if you don't believe that it's possible, you'll never ask yourself, well, how can I do it? And then you'll never get the solution. And then bam, an idea hit me. I implemented the idea that week. And that week I hit, $146,000 that week. So literally in a moment, my mind changed. I saw the result instantly. Then I became a believer. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I can do that. Now all I got to do is put this on repeat. And now I can start making $150,000 every single week. And that's when everything scaled. So a lot of people, we're looking for external things, right? Like, man, I need to market more. Man, I need to pass out flyers. Man, I need to get on social media. I need to figure out Facebook. And hey, I'm down with all that. I believe everything starts with marketing, then sales, and excellent service. All that, I'm sure you have people on that. But it really begins in the mind. It really begins in the mind. And once you open up your mind and start asking yourself, how can I make more money faster? Because that's my real problem. And my whole life changed after that, my friend.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt, Let's hustle. Well, I want to go back in time a little bit if we can. And
Yeah.
I know in your bio, you have this part of it. It says that you came from poverty to prosperity, and now you're actually very prosperous. But what was it like, and what were the things you implemented to get yourself going to where you could actually say that I'm good enough, this is gonna go, I'm gonna be able to make it?
Yeah, that's a great question, brother. It's absolutely right, man. I started off, wanting to be a speaker, travel the world, and to motivate other people and uplift other people, and I failed miserably. As a matter of fact, things were so bad. I had no money in the bank. I didn't have enough money for a breakfast burrito. I mean, I had to scrounge in my ashtray to go buy a breakfast burrito for my wife. I was $180,000 in credit card debt. My wife and I had to sell everything we had, and we had to move into her little 12 by 12 bedroom. I joke around and define, I said, that's hell on earth. Living with a mother-in-law who doesn't like you, it doesn't get any worse than that. But it was at my lowest point, financially, where I made a decision. And I said, you know what? I'm never going to go back to this. And I made a decision to study the top 2% of the wealthiest people in the world. And I took a whole year, and I literally spent 6 to 7 hours a day studying them ruthlessly. I invested in programs, training material that whole year. And it was one of the most transforming years of my entire life. And within 3 years, once I started thinking like the elite, once I started breaking my own belief systems of what was possible for me, everything started to change. I went from having no money in the bank to building a multi-million-dollar expert empire in 3 years. I went from being $180,000 in credit card debt to having no credit card debt whatsoever. I got out of my mother-in-law's house, hell, and my wife and I bought our dream home 3 years later. And everything changed so fast. And one of the things that was fortunate is as I started changing my belief, what I noticed is right people started coming into my life. And I had a multi-millionaire mentor come into my life, and he started teaching me things. And one of the main concepts he would iterate over and over and over again, he would tell me, Keith, your thoughts about generating and multiplying your money, most of your thoughts and beliefs are like old school strategies from the 80s and 90s. They're the long strategies that's going to take you forever. He said, let me teach you the fast way. And I'm like, wow. And so that year was a really big transformational year for me. And later on, I went on to build the brand America's #1 confidence coach. Excuse me. And I literally, that took me literally all over the world, from Tampa to Tokyo to Singapore, South Africa. I've been all over the world doing conferences. And then I started to notice like more and more this old school philosophy about building wealth, eliminating debt. And I'm like, wow, all this stuff is totally opposite of what this multi-million. Now this guy was worth $100 million. And so that's one of the first things I tell people: don't study just millionaires. And that's kind of like the big buzzword today, right? It's like, oh, he's a millionaire. It's like, well, that's good. But a lot of millionaires are scared. They reach millionaire status. And maybe I'm sure you probably have some in the chiropractic world that listens to you, but most of them are scared. Once they reach that level, they then go into a mode of I got to preserve what I have. So they stop taking risks. They stop expanding, and they shrink back. And what got them to $1 million, now they stop doing what worked. And they don't realize that at every new level that you go financially, it takes a mind reset has to take place within you. And you don't back off the accelerator, you put on the accelerator, or else what happens to you is you end up stagnating for a season. And once you start stagnating in your business, I don't care what business it is, eventually it starts declining. So if our listeners are here today and your results don't lie, and if you've been stagnant, if you've been making the same amount of money personally as yourself as a chiropractor, or if your business is just staying the same and you're not experiencing growth, listen, you need to, it's a common thing. It happens to a lot of great leaders, but what you got to do is, man, you got to shift and you got to reset your mind. And the first thing you got to do is you got to set some bigger targets. And that's what my multimillionaire friend taught me. He said, Keith, the size of the target's going to determine the size of your motivation. And he told me at that point, I only had $247 in my pocket. He told me at that point, he said, set a goal to become a millionaire. Now, to me, back, I had nothing. Wow, a millionaire, that was like huge. And 20 years ago, that was a lot of money. Now today, it's peanuts. But the next statement blew me away. He said, don't set a goal just for the money or the possessions or the status. He said, set a goal to become a millionaire for the person you'll have to become to achieve such a lofty goal. He said, what you know right now about money isn't enough, Keith. You don't have the skills, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the fortitude yet to build something of that magnitude. And he said, but setting that goal will stretch you. And man, I'm telling you, that was one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got. And so I went on my journey, and then at each phase, I just keep expanding. I have to reset. And so I teach a lot of those principles in my Financial Fast Track book. Not only the mind game that you have to conquer, but also these 7 practical steps that guy gave me years ago, that I just put those steps on repeat. And after just, doing the confidence brand for a lot of years, I really felt it was important that we needed some fresh voices out there that really taught people how to fast track their financial situations, how to turn things around quickly. And so that's why I wrote Financial Fast Track. And by the way, anybody that has me on this month, we're doing a free giveaway. I bought thousands of copies from my publisher, and all they have to do is go to financialfasttrack.com and they can get a free copy. They pay for shipping and handling. That's it. But they can get a free copy of the book. It's my gift to the listeners to help you with fresh strategies.
That's awesome. Well, I know we got about 9 minutes left of our show today, but there's a lot of cool stuff I want to get to. Maybe we can go on like a lightning round for the next 9 minutes.
Okay.
3 pillars of success. I know that you mentioned that inside of your bio, which I think is really cool to share. There's I think they're the confidence, living wealthy, and leadership.
Confidence, leadership, and wealth.
Yep.
Those 3 things. Without a doubt, when you study the peak performers in the world, they'll all tell you that they started out with an internal belief in themselves that they would become radically successful. And that's what confidence is. Confidence is having that internal belief that you can succeed, that you can do something big, that you weren't put here to play small. And so confidence is the voice in the back of your head saying, yes, you can. That's why it's important to build in wealth, right? It's important to build in your business. You can 10x your business. You can take it to a whole nother level, just like you can take your income. So that's confidence. And then of course, leadership, right? You got to know how to build a team, and being an effective leader and building a team is the key to unleashing your potential, because all by yourself, you can only do so much. And so you got to have people alongside you, and you've got to know how to deal with them, and that's one of the big challenges that we all have as leaders, is building that team and getting that team all moving in a single direction where we're 10xing our lives. And then finally, the wealth piece, right? No matter where you're at in life, it's going to take money, and so just like with your back, when your back's out of alignment, as you all know well, you have other issues in your life. And when your money's not in alignment and your money's messed up, it messes up your spirituality, it messes up your relationships, it messes up your physiology, it messes up it messes up your professional life, it messes up your it just stems into everything else. So once you fix the money problem, a lot of our other problems get cured instantly. So in my mind, those are the three pillars that lead a person to success in life.
And then you mentioned earlier before we started out, there's 4 levels of wealth: the muscles, the management, the mouth, and the imagination. Let's walk people through that quickly.
Yeah, being in sync with the times, right? It's like in the farming age, you needed to be a farmer. And in the farming age, what did you need? You needed big muscles. And so he who had the biggest farm and could work the hardest and work the ground with his muscles had the most money. And then we went into the industrial age, right? And in the industrial age, it was all about, what did you want to be in industrial age? You didn't want to be an employee because you're going to be broke. So you wanted to be a manager. So you wanted to manage the people who had the muscles, that put on the tires, that did the hard laborious work, at the manufacturer. And so if you're a manager, then hey, you went up another level in wealth. Most managers today make somewhere between 40, they cap out at about $250,000. And so, and what I find in a lot of ways is a lot of people are still working with their muscles, still working in management level situations, and that's why they're tapped out. The higher level today is to work with your mouth and your imagination. Those are the 2 higher levels. And in my mind, when we look at the highest level, this is unlimited possibility when you operate out of your imagination, we look at Elon Musk, right? How is he making so much money? He's living out of his imagination. And he's creating stuff that's never existed before. And that's where you tap into that Steve Jobs wealth, that, the Bill Gates level wealth. That's where you live out of your imagination. So as you climb up that ladder, you got to adjust. I think, and I shared a little bit with you, I think a lot of chiropractors really need to shift, because we're in the information age. We transition out of the industrial age. Now we're in the information age, where people who develop information and put products together online and become thought leaders, write books, have master classes, these people are becoming millionaires faster than any other industry on the planet other than tech. And so there's a lot of chiropractors out there, man. There is no reason why some of you shouldn't be thinking, man, you know what? I'm tired of rubbing on people's backs and working with my muscles and all that. And a lot of you need to shift, and you say, how can I make more money faster? Some of you have some understanding of how you could put some courses together, put some trainings together, whether it's on health or whatever it may be in your field, but be thinking in that, because this is the new way. And a lot of people are missing out on it. And that's one of my pieces in my financial fast track I teach, that the fastest way to wealth is by becoming an infopreneur. And I discuss a lot about how to do that, how to make that happen. And it's pretty interesting. So That's my thought. That's my 4 tiers.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And I think there's going to be a lot of takeaways for people that watch the show today. Now let's close out with a couple things. What books would you recommend people to read besides your own? And what podcasts would you recommend people to listen to?
Wow, that's a really great question. Other books beside my own. I think one of the best books that I've ever read that helped me as a leader, because we're talking to a lot of leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I started early in my early 20s following Dr. John Maxwell. He's like known as a big leadership guru. I don't know if your audience is familiar with him or not.
Yep.
Oh, okay. But developing the leader within. To me, that's the classic of all classics, really coming to the understanding that all of us are built to lead. All of us have the traits of a leader inside of us already, but you have to develop the skills. Leadership, it's not something like, well, I'm just born a leader. No. Leadership is a skill. It's a skill that must be developed. That's all it is. Just like you have to develop a skill set, you have to go to school, you have to learn. How do I rub a person? And I don't know the full lingo of chiropractors, but how do I rub a person's back in a certain way to get that back in alignment? It's a skill set. In the same way, leadership is the same way. You already got it within you. You just have to start building those skill sets. And the beginning of that just become by awareness. Hey, I'm already a leader. Now I just have to develop that skill set. So that's my favorite book.
What podcast you like?
My favorite podcast that I listen to a lot is I listen to Brandon Burchard's podcast, Motivation with Brendan Burchard. That's what I listen to.
Cool.
I get a lot of good stuff from him because he speaks to those who are speakers and educators and thought leaders. So that's my favorite.
Well, there's definitely some good resources there. I'll have to check out Maxwell's book, Developing the Leader Within, and I'll definitely check out Burchard's podcast. I think we can always learn. And that's the thing that I think you've impressed upon me the most today is that listen and learn and take advice and implement and find mentors and find the leaders that went there before you and did the things and learn from them, become friends with them, become familiar with them, study their ways, and then implement. I think that if I could tie it all together is take the knowledge that you find, take the leadership that you seek, and become that for others by implementing. And I really believe that the core of everything that we do today is relationship based. And you have to build your tribe in order to make that course. You have to build the podcast in order to build your following to get to the place where you get financial freedom. You know, early on, one of my coaches told me I had a hobby job and podcasting. And I told him, well, I've talked to the greatest minds in the profession and they all respect me. And now they want to do business with me. You tell me that's a hobby. They're all knocking on my door now. So I think the biggest thing that I could ever impress upon other people as the host of this show is to find people and build your tribe alongside you and become known, loved, and trusted. And I think that that's a big part of what you do when you build a community and you go out there and you learn as you implement. But not only that, as you said, leadership is a learned skill and you have to earn it. It's not just given to you. So also the golden rule applies: treat others as you hope to be treated. And don't ever look down on somebody today because one day you might be looking up at them. Yeah. And I think a lot of this stuff is so true. And it's the golden part of the show. I just want to say thank you, Dr. Keith Johnson, for being my episode 472 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you would like to close out with today?
I would just like to close out with the quote that changed my life in my mother-in-law's house in hell. That kind of summarizes, beautiful summary, by the way, a summary of my life's journey. But it closes out what you said. It was by Jim Rohn. He said this: success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. And when I heard that, brother, that changed my life, because I wanted to be a success. I wanted to do something big with my life. And I was always chasing it, man, like a kite that I could never catch. And when I saw that, I'm like, wow, if I'll just focus on becoming, my inner world changes, my outer world will change too. And so I hope that blesses everybody. It sure blessed my life.
Well, I love the I came from nothing, now I'm here story. So thank you for sharing with me today. Thank you for sharing with our audience. And I'm going to close out by telling everyone, you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Dr. Keith, have an amazing day down there in Tampa.
You too. God bless.
All right. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.